Welcome to another episode of Leading with Clarity podcast. And today, my guest is Gautam Ganglani, and we are going to discuss how to build leadership that transforms organizations. Welcome, Gautam.
Thanks, Samir. Pleasure to be with you today.
Wonderful to have you here. It's been a long time since we did a podcast like this together, I think, right?
Yeah, a few years, but
Yeah,
looking forward to our conversation today.
wonderful. Uh, every time I kick off by pulling up this one question that I had asked you, what does leadership mean to you? And you shared that leadership is inspiring others through clarity, authenticity, action to achieve a shared vision and to grow together. There's a lot of words over there and a lot of ideas over there. I'd like you to unpack what that means for you and in your own words to begin with.
Sure. Thanks, Samir. Yeah, to me, when it comes to leadership, communication is absolutely key, and hence the word clarity appears there because when you provide clarity in your communication, then there is good, healthy understanding, and authenticity is important because you want to be the best version of yourself in every situation, and people connect with authenticity. So from that is what comes sort of the connection because you are yourself, and every leader is different, every personality is different. So to me, that's really important as well. When it comes to a shared vision, you want to have inclusive. It's not my vision, it's not your vision. It's an inclusive shared vision of the organization. And as you know, they say that together everyone achieves more as an acronym for team. And to me, together as a team, one wants to have that shared vision because then
Mm.
everyone's a leader. At the end of the day, each one of us is a leader in our own right, whilst we may work as a team. And if we have a shared vision with clarity and authenticity, one can achieve great things.
Yeah, I can see how the words are rolling off your tongue so easily. It's like you have, been doing this for so long, so many years. And I want to really go back to, I remember meeting your dad a long time back, in one of those exhibitions, the first ones, I think. And I want to start with your dad and the impact that he's had on your life and this journey that you're on. So,
Yeah.
how would you want to unpack that?
Yeah, well, I want to obviously acknowledge and appreciate my dad, who was the founder of Right Selection over 30 years ago. It was his passion for self development through books, audios, videos that very much started this business journey. And grateful that I was able to join him 5 years into the business and learn from his wealth of experience, and be able to, I would say, look upon him as my role model in many ways.
30 years ago, it was very prominent in the West, but not so much on this side of the uh, region, in the world. Was he operating in the West, or did he get inspired by there, or how is it that he decided that there were a few I know over here, but not as it is today? Today, it's much more, and the West has also started coming over here. I'm sure you're finding a lot more competition than, which is, I think, much more interesting because it shows that the market is getting more and more matured for leadership development, which is a good sign. What are your thoughts on evolving, and what was it 30 years ago, and what does it look like right now, the market?
Sure. Yeah, 30 years ago, it was very new to the fact that when we opened our bookstore, it was featured on the front page of Gulf News tabloid, which
Wow.
today would be a rare thing. But in 1995, I record, I think June 95, it was like first self-help bookstore opened in Dubai, because
Mm.
all the bookstores in those days were predominantly fiction, art, coffee table books, children's books, but there was very little non-fiction. So being a non-fiction self-help bookstore, became newsworthy that Gulf News, highlighted a father and son self-help bookstore opening. And that was really exciting because people really responded well to that. As you said, in those days, it was sort of new in this space. People were aware of it, but it wasn't present in the region. Obviously, 30 years on, things have evolved tremendously. And this part of the world has attracted global leaders, thought leaders, business leaders, experts, authors. It's been like a center of the global stage in terms of events and conferences, and it continues to grow.
Yeah. Uh, One more question around your relationship with your father, in the sense, What made you say yes to joining the business rather than not going on your own and going the traditional route of finding a job or doing something else? What made you say yes to this journey that you have picked?
That's a great question. It takes me down memory lane. Yeah, I recall my dad. My dad and me had a very good personal relationship and bond as well. That even in prior to joining Right Selection, from the age of 16, when he was between West Africa and UK, I used to spend time visiting the office. There was already a relationship, a familiarity with sort of our strengths, that we complemented each other in terms of his strengths and mine. So that comfort was an important starting point that
Mm,
made the decision to join my dad very easy. And when he did say, "Would you like to join?" I said, "Let's do this for 6 months and see how it goes," because I was new to the books line of work. And for him, it was a passion project initially, which has obviously grown into a business. It remains a passion, but yes, it happens to be the family business. So when I joined, I joined with an open mind for 6 months, and within 6 months it just naturally grew on me. And I said, what I love most about this industry is the quality of people that you meet.
mm,
You meet like-minded and what I call like-hearted individuals. Having a passion for learning and accepting that learning is a lifetime journey attracts a certain person, certain leader, and there's a certain connection. We always like to connect with people who have similar interests, and that to me is the quality of people in this business, and the quality, the meaningful conversations you have. Here we're speaking today. You've got your own podcast. I've written a book a few years ago. So combination of all these brings good quality people together, be they authors,
mm,
be they speakers, be they coaches, be they trainers. So I think in summary, it was really the quality of people, the hunger to continuously learn, whether it's
mm.
through books, audios, videos. And when you're continuously on a learning journey, you're always progressing, you're always improving, you're reskilling, upskilling.
Absolutely. I remember reading a post of yours recently where you spoke about how you got connected through Ivan Meisner to one of some of the world great speakers and how you brought them over here. Would you like to share that journey and how that has uh, evolved for you or become the tipping point, or what was it that that moment created, and where are you in that journey right now?
Sure, sure. That story you referred to was, I was when I moved to Dubai many years back. I joined BNI, which many of you know is known as Business Networking International, and their philosophy is givers gain. And I was a part of the community for over 7 years, playing every role. So givers gain was something that was always embedded in me, because that what goes around comes around is something I have the biggest pleasure in giving, contributing, making a difference, which comes from the very line of work we're in. And it was a time when Dr. Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI globally, was visiting Dubai and Mumbai, in fact, India. And we were having dinner, and we obviously each one was introducing themselves and asking us each other what next, what would you like to achieve. And at that stage, we had brought several great speakers, be it Ron Kaufman, Bob Urichuk, and numerous other speakers. But we'd written to Jack Canfield, who's the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul series. He's written the Success Principles, and obviously he's a global icon in many respects and of personal development. And I just asked Ivan about if he knew him, and he said absolutely. He's a dear friend, and we had a conversation. He understood about my business, and he understood that if I was to make the introduction, would there be a genuine opportunity for us to collaborate with him? And I said yes, I would be delighted to explore that. And my rapport with Ivan in that trip built his trust and confidence to make the introduction. And within 6 months of that email, we'd hosted Jack Canfield in Dubai, and it was at Duck Tac. I remember
Mm.
it very clearly. It was an absolutely sellout event with 543 seats.
Wow.
Uh, and then we hosted him numerous times in the Gulf and India. And we remained dear friends. That even on that post that I shared on LinkedIn a week or so back, Jack himself has, I think Ivan Meisner has commented, and Stephen
Mm.
Covey has commented. So many people connected with that story. But yeah, it built a wonderful friendship, and we hosted him over 10 to 15 times. And from that, it went into Brian Tracy, to Stephen M.R. Covey, Marshall Goldsmith. So what happens when you bring in through that first connect, you raise the bar of your credibility
Yeah,
in the kind of speakers you can bring. And then by default, that automatically builds trust and confidence with other global speakers who then also became part of our pool.
yeah. So you're saying you already brought in Ron Kaufman and so many of others before this happened.
That's correct.
So how did you get that first break? How did you get that first big name to come in, and how did you get them to trust you when you had no history?
Yeah, so actually, we saw a direct connect between the people who read these books are people who appreciate learning.
Mm,
And there was an event agency company that was already bringing in some kind of educational certification programs. And so we approached them, and the first event we would have liked to host it was a speaker by the name of Bob Urichuk, who had written a book in the sales space, and that was our very first event. And we hosted him, and we literally wrote an email to all our clients who buy books.
mm,
And we had about 130 people turn up. I think it was at the Move and Pick in Bardubai, near Lamsey those days, and that's where we had over 130 people attend, and that was like the feedback was phenomenal. That speaker trusted us because he was new to the region. So it was a speaker coming for the first time on a topic which is important even today. How do we build our business? How do you handle objections? How do you generate sales? How do you everyone's always looking to grow. So the topic is what drove it. The speaker and us took a, you can say, calculated risk and chance, and we worked with an
mm,
event agency who managed the event side. That success led to us going independent as right selection, because initially it was just the bookstore. So that became
mm.
a separate trade license towards the public
Lovely.
seminar side of the business.
Mm,
And Ron Kaufman was our next big speaker, and he became our most consistent speaker for 20 years, where we hosted him every year for a live public program and several in-house programs. And Ron Kaufman's program came because one of our clients who was investing in books of Ron through us. So we met Ron at an event where he was speaking for one of our clients who we'd set up a library. So that was how Ron's came about, that he met us selling his books at an event and said, "How about doing a public program?" And one thing led to the other.
nice, nice. Um, so you've almost established yourself as the company that brings in great speakers into the market and delivers to the organizations, right? Over the years, what have you seen within corporates, the appetite for leadership development, number one? And have you seen an evolution? Have you seen some kind of a change or progression or anything?
Yeah, I mean, the
Dubai
topics.
market, I'm speaking specific about the Dubai market.
Yeah, I mean, see, topics, trends keep changing here. So you always got to keep up to date with what are the current pains, current challenges, current opportunities.
Mm,
That comes through quality, meaningful conversations with your clients, with your business partners, in terms of networking. So when you're out there, you're having great quality conversations, you're listening attentively, and through conversations, you understand where people see the opportunity or the pain points to solve. And therefore, the topics change. Ultimately, the speaker requirements change based on that. The other change is their people's attention span. Time is the most precious commodity, as we know. So, taking a whole day out for a public seminar is not something that people are readily doing as before. They'd rather things which are short, sharp, laser focused. There's already a level of certain maturity where people are learning through podcasts, people are learning through reading. And so when they go for an open program, they definitely want something which is maybe from an hour to maximum half a day. So I said the format of learning in terms of short programs, that is more common than maybe 20 years or so back. And the topics.
yeah. So here's a question, which is something related to exactly what you just mentioned. It happens mostly in workshops and seminars, but is that what organizations should really be doing? Because transformation doesn't really happen in just a workshop or in just a day of listening to a speaker, correct? So, yeah. Your take.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I resonate with what you're sharing, and that's when people ask me that, the distinction. And to me, something which is a 1 hour or half a day is what I call an event. It's partly edutainment, it's a transaction, it's an event. It certainly ticks a box of inspiration, could be thought provoking, could be part of a larger conference. But leadership development, whether it's through coaching, training, or leadership programs, happens as a journey. Leadership development is a journey. So I would rather a company have half a day every month for 6 months rather than in the past would be a 3 day program. I mean, a 3 day program is information overload for 3 days, and then you go back to your workplace and, how much are you applying? Whereas to me, if you do half a day, you apply some of those learnings, there's accountability, and then you know that there's another session next month for half a day. So to
Yeah.
me, leadership development and executive coaching are journeys of 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And that's where real change happens. And that's what we're seeing with clients really asking us is that we want to create a transformation, we want to create a cultural change, and that happens over time.
And I've seen now you've also stepped into the world of coaching also, right? Are you doing coaching as well now, along with the bringing the speakers?
That's correct. Yeah, in the last 5 years, especially in the pandemic, the demand for executive coaching has increased. So we do have coaches from the region, we have coaches internationally, and depending on the client's budgets, needs, we want to identify the right coach with the right experience for clients' needs, or even certain individuals who self-invest in executive coaching. Some of them need career transitioning; they're changing careers midlife to new roles they're taking on, new responsibilities, to the reality that they realize they need to change certain behaviors to become better leaders. And so, yes, there are individual leaders, entrepreneurs who invest in themselves, and then there are corporates who invest in senior leaders.
How do you define better leaders? What is your definition of someone becoming a better leader?
A better leader is someone who's basically, firstly, got an open mindset to continuous learning. We all have different strengths, and we have what I call not weaknesses, I say different areas of improvement. So, to me, personally, I like to focus on becoming stronger at my strengths. Um, and at the same time, you want to raise awareness of certain skill sets that we may want to improve as a leader. And I say becoming a better leader, some like one of for me is I'd like to become a better listener. As a better listener, I know that that will build better rapport, trust with my team. It will become better rapport and trust with our customers. So to me, whilst I may be a successful leader on my own merit, I know there are areas of improvement, for example, listening skills
Hmm.
and asking better questions. So by just focusing on that and having a coach to help me become a better listener, I'm better at asking questions. Ultimately, I become a better version of myself. Or as Marshall's book, Goldsmith's book says, what got you here won't get you there. So
Yeah.
if we're going to be the same leader as I was 20 years ago, then you're going to be, not relevant to today's times.
Is there a strength that you have recognized recently that you have, which you did not recognize 20 years ago?
That's a great question.
Because you said when you got with your father, you recognized your strengths and his strengths, and you came together to work on each other's strengths and complement each other, right? So today, when you reflect back, is there something that you recently recognize as you went through life that, oh, this is also my strength, or this is something that I did not realize when I was so young, but it really is amazing for me to work on and make it more stronger? Is there something?
Sure. I mean, what comes to mind is that, obviously with my dad's strengths that he has, which he was a great listener, he was great asking questions, he remained very calm in all situations, um, strategic thinking. So, working and collaborating with him over those years, those were improved over time for me as a leader. And now that I'm predominantly more independent, I would say some of those skill sets have come into play because the situation demands that resilience, demands better listening, great questions. So some of the areas which may not have been my core strengths, but I was more and more familiar under his leadership. In today's times, as you ask, is that those have come to surface, and those have become skill sets which are more and more applicable in my role as a leader.
Hmm.
And ultimately, I'd say in my core strength of connecting with people across culture, maybe because I've lived in the East and West, therefore you are very comfortable with multicultural conversations with people across cultures, people of all ages, and you're sort of someone who builds rapport very easily. That today is fundamental because we've always networks are changing, roles are changing, people are changing in the sense. So I think that's something which is really important in today's business world.
Yeah. When you think about Dubai as a market, let us say, what do you think organizations or organization leaders are not focusing upon when it comes to leadership development? What are they not already doing? That if you wish they did, it would be so much better for their managers, their leaders, their organization, their bottom lines. What is it that they're already not doing?
Yeah, I think I've had a handful of conversations this week itself, and there's still a lot of organizations that have not engaged training, not created a culture of learning. So, despite some companies' success or challenges, they are missing out on investing in their people. So, I think really what I would say is to encourage more and more organizations to see the value of leadership development, whether it's through coaching, training, or speaking, engaging speakers, because people need to take time to upskill, people need to pause, maybe need to reflect, people need to learn global best practices, and that comes from external talent coming into the organization. So I think really the gap or the where I see the scope of growth is that more and more companies need to hear the success stories from companies who have a vested interest in learning and have a culture of learning so that they can see the value, because sometimes you need to hear it from someone else on the value creation, the experience, the ROI, and
Yeah.
realize it's not an expense, it's an investment.
How do you calculate the ROI for bringing in a speaker, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not easy to measure a speaker per se. When it's a speaker for an event, people look at ROI on literally not necessarily about numbers necessarily in financial numbers, but it could be the number of people attending. When you've got a celebrity speaker, then the attendance tends to be higher, the commitment level of coming. Ultimately, the purpose of bringing in a speaker will determine the ROI. If you're bringing the speaker because you want decision makers to be there present, then that becomes an ROI, because the conversations you have with the right people being in the room gives the company the ROI. That's one
Mm.
example. If it's someone coming in because they've got a million plus followers on LinkedIn, their posts, then that comes under PR, and there's visibility and awareness of the brand and the event because that author, speaker, coach had a lot of, or the influencer had followers. So people then tick box the amount of views, engagement that took place online. That's the ROI. As opposed to ROI on sales, where if you're doing sales training, you look at this is our results, and there's growth in sales year on year, and we see the value of training our sales team. So then that's a distinct difference.
Which is, and I'm sure I feel you'll resonate. It's a very sad truth, right? That it is like that. That the primary ROI is not improving sales or bottom line, but having PR or something else. Uh, I'm just thinking aloud over here. Is it because Dubai is such a transient city where everybody comes in, they come in for job, they come in for making money, and then they leave. So they don't really care about other things. The tough ones will survive, the weak ones will disappear. Is it because of that, or is it the air in Dubai because of which it is like this? Why is education or training or growth itself not the primary ROI?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, I'd say it definitely brings ROI towards business growth and development. One may not be able to measure it as accurately as one would like. Like in sales, it's very clear that these 10 sales leaders have achieved these targets. And now, after training, their targets are, they're excelling in their targets. So that's easy, where it's this number versus that number. When it comes to a speaker for a conference or for a leadership offsite, if an idea takes place in that room and it's executed, one may not measure the impact of that idea, but definitely there is value creation from these. It's the ROI measurement may not be very distinctly defined. So I won't take away from the fact that there's no ROI. I would just say it's not as easily measurable, but there's
Mm.
definitely ROI, because people would say, I had these breakthroughs, they've solved certain problems. What value do you put to solving a problem? What value do you put to solving a relationship between departments working better together? What value do you put towards growing in a new country because of a conversation that took place in a training or in a session which had a global speaker? So new ideas do come out of it. I just guess it's not as measurable as this
Mm.
sale equals this month from month to month.
Yeah. Another question is, you bring in a lot of people from the West, right? So, what's the biggest misconception about Western leadership models, especially when you apply it over here? I know humans are humans everywhere, but there are still regional sensitivities, regional adaptations that has to happen. So, when it comes to transposing what works in the West to this region, what has been your observation?
Yeah, to me, this region is one of the most multicultural regions in the world. So to me, as you rightly pointed out, we're all human beings. We may be from different cultures, different experiences, but ultimately, fundamental principles of learning are applicable across the board. And yes, one can be aware of cultural sensitivities or differences between in terms of approach. Some people like to get straight to the point. Some people like to build the relationship first. So again, each one of us have different strengths, and I think understanding cultural differences is for your own awareness, which you quite quickly learn in a great environment that Dubai has, because you're constantly exposed to people from east, west, across the globe, all in one location. So I think comes to learning, I think things have evolved. That school of thought of Western thinking versus Eastern thinking, and that maybe that was 10, 15 years ago. But I think um, the entire world has become very global, and Dubai is definitely a great sort of benchmark for that in terms of global citizens living here, and people working in a multicultural environment, both at the workplace, both in customers, both in suppliers as well.
Yeah, we have a comment here, and we have quite a few people who are joining in. But there's one comment from Deepak Badra who said it was an event conducted 16, 17 years back, which has transformed his journey completely, where he's gone into uh, financial freedom and he's been able to meet with some of the greats and work with some of the great people, know him personally as well. Uh, is there a leadership truth that you held 20 years back which you now find is wrong, which you
Wow.
don't agree with now? 20
A
years ago,
leader.
you thought that was the truth, but now when you look back, you're like, no, that was.
Wow, that's a question where I'm lost for words. To think of something that I felt was valid 20 years ago, but may no longer be valid till today. Um, yeah, it draws a blank. Nothing stands out that something that I applied 20 years ago and today. Yeah, I guess because one keeps adapting every year, um, over this 30-year journey, is always open to change, open to upgrading. The way of how business is done and the way of learning has evolved. Like I said, the examples of everyone reads books or watches audio tapes. Then it went to podcasts as we have today, or YouTube. So the form of way of learning has changed, but ultimately there's a hunger to learn and a hunger to grow. So I think, and then as I mentioned, the attention spans have changed.
Mm.
So that is where that has shortened from there. So I think the way of learning and business has just evolved, and you've adapted because it's not been overnight. It's happened
Right.
over the years. I guess to some extent, the last 5 years has had dramatic change in virtual experiences, which was not as omnipresent in the past. And even today, when you have the opportunity to meet people, happy to do a meeting virtually before a physical meeting. So nothing specific comes to mind other than the natural progression of change that has taken place.
Which is beautiful. When I think about your answer, what I'm realizing is, or reflecting is, the reason because you are able to continuously adapt, meaning change if something is not working immediately rather than wait for a long period of time to change, is why you're not seeing anything in 20 years. Probably it was happening in micro levels constantly, and you're doing
Absolutely.
it continuously, and therefore you're applying the principle of Kaizen and improving every single day rather than changing once in 20 years.
Correct, correct, correct. Yeah.
Uh, I've also seen you spoke about it right now in about BNI. You have mentioned quite a few times on your LinkedIn post and other places on social media about how important relationships are and how important it is to build relationships. And it has been the seeding ground for you to build your business as well. How does one build an authentic relationship as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, as a leader, whether it's with your team members, whether it's with your customers, whether it's with business partners, alliances, to me, it comes with building rapport is about not being in a rush. People have a transaction mindset to a journey. Relationships are a journey. Business is a journey. And to me, once you take time, which is easier said than done, many times in today's world, we want things fast. So to me, to build meaningful relationships, it happens over conversations. It could happen over a coffee. It could happen over lunch. It could happen over a video call. But when you make time to connect with people personally and professionally, you build meaningful relationships and you have more authentic conversations. Um, and that's where people connect with people. They build trust, they build rapport. And you've heard the saying, people like to do business with people they like, and they have a rapport, they're comfortable. And that
Yeah.
liking, comfortable, and rapport comes from taking it step by step and building the relationship before you earn the right to have a business conversation.
But how does one measure that? Like, for example, somebody would say, "Oh, I have met him 5 times." Oh, we can also see even within BNI, right? There are people who meet on a weekly basis, and still they don't get business from each other. Sometimes they go through a whole year and then they don't renew the membership. For example, they were like, "That whole 1 year was a waste of time for me." They would have done breakfast together, they would have had meetings together, they would have done their one-to-ones, and yet something was missing for them, because of which
Right.
they were not able to build authentic relationship. I think it was very they were ticking all the boxes of what is to be done, but still authentic relationship was not being. And this is me just reflecting over here. You can share what you think about it. Is it true or not true? And if it is true, then what next for those people?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a valid point. And if I go back to my days at BNI when that did happen, the question we would ask is, it's the term of BNI is giver's gain. So your energy, attention has to be focused on giving. And once you are focused on giving, um, then what goes around comes around. And my dad always said the most important bank account is your emotional bank account and your relationship capital. Now, when you take time, be it in BNI or any networking opportunity, is to build relationships and help other people. By you helping other people, you are building an emotional bank account where the person says wants to help you back. And the common challenge people look is that's another term they use in BNI, hunters versus farmers. So
Hmm.
if someone's out there to just connect with us in people and tell them what they do, they're doing all the talking and very little questioning, very little listening. They're not building rapport. Yes, they're turning up, they're speaking, they're having breakfast, they're meeting a lot of people, shaking a lot of hands. But what was the depth of those conversations that they were having? Were they listening to other people, seeing how they can help them, referring them, um, and having that experience that the person would feel compelled to want to help them back? And that was where we saw, it's not a thumb rule, but I would say 80% of the challenges of those were people who did not, or focus on what can I get from this network, or how can I get business, etc., as opposed to how can I give, how can I help, how can I contribute. An example outside of BNI is when you go networking or I go networking, and you got 100 people in the room. I see some people, and you can just stand. Go next time you go networking, just take 5 minutes to stand and observe the different types of networking going on. I see people who are just trying to shake as many hands as possible and give out cards, and there are people who said, who just met five people. They may have shook hands of 10, 15 people, but you could see that they spend minimum 5 to 7 minutes with five different people. Now, that's my thinking, is that when I go for a networking event, is I want to have 3 to 5 conversations, not how many people did I meet, because those 3 to 5 conversations mean I've taken the time to ask, listen, that I could even write an email. Hi, Samir, it was an absolute pleasure meeting you at the event last evening. You shared one of your favorite books is, I'm going to pick that up and read that. You happen to share about an upcoming movie that you're going to watch, example. We also learned something on strategy that you mentioned. That's something that really was valuable. Thank you so much for taking the time to share. Let's keep in touch. And if there's anything I can do to add value to your life, personally or professionally, please feel free to connect with me. Example.
Wow.
Now, opposed to, hi Samir, great seeing you last night. Can we connect on LinkedIn? I'm like, um, okay, that's like, that there's no context, there's no emotion, there's no substance in that message. It's just like saying, I want to shake your hand, have your business card, connect on LinkedIn. But the earlier example I gave you, you felt like, oh wow, yeah, I connected with Gautam personally, authentically, professionally. So there's a distinct difference in how you network, and
How did you learn this?
I don't think I would claim that I learned it. I guess it comes where I was in boarding school for a couple of years, from the age of 16 to 18. And that's when I realized it was something that was very natural to me. Me and my best friend in school, his name was Simon, and both of us used to organize the weekend plans. And what we observed is if we didn't make a plan, nothing happened. And we just loved bringing people together. It was something we naturally did. If you have a fixed date, fixed time, and something compelling, people will show up. And we just love bringing people together, because we saw when you bring people together with a common interest, there's an energy. So in this case, that same pleasure is what I was doing in the 15 years of bringing seminars. You bring in a global speaker on a specific topic, and you bring people who want to learn, who know that author or speaker, and bring like-minded people together. People learn from the speaker. People meet other people who are fans of the speaker, and then they do business together and they build friendships together. And it was just a beautiful synergy of bringing people together, and that happened from boarding school in the UK. And I guess it's just something that came very naturally, and probably was my why of why I do what I do, because it's really, I just love bringing people together, and solving challenges through meaningful conversations, and great ideas.
I, speaking to you, I don't know, we have known each other for a very long time, but today, for the very first time, I feel there's so much more that you have to offer the world than you already are, right?
Thank you so much.
Uh, if you knew you could not fail, what would you do next for right selection? What is a dream that you have for right selection, or what is a dream you would create for right selection, or for this market, or for this industry, if you knew you would not fail?
Yeah, I mean, for me, from a the word legacy comes to mind when you ask that question for some reason, and it's really about how many more lives can I impact positively, how many more people can I help,
How
how many
many?
more people can I connect, infinitely more with the world we live in. So why limit it to UAE? We could do the Gulf, we could do India, we could reach global markets in terms of impacting lives. At the end of the day, as you earlier said, we're all human beings. So whichever part of the world we live in, and whether we do it physically or the beauty of digital and AI, we can connect and emotionally connect with people virtually as well. So ultimately, I'd say is really to impact lives globally, and help more and more organizations all over the world solve their challenges, have breakthroughs, inspire growth, success. I know that sounds generic, but I would just say I don't want to confine myself to just making a difference in the region. This would definitely be, to me, a center of the world in that sense. So, yeah.
For me, that is a given. That my question is beyond that actually.
Okay.
So, uh, so I'm thinking of it like the first 5 years or 10 years of your life was about the bookstore.
Yeah.
Then it was about the event where it was about bringing speakers. And I think we are somewhere in our journey always where the life before that was preparing us for a bigger role. And somehow I get the sense that you're in for the next leap. I don't know what that is. I'm just
Right.
throwing it over here, what I'm sensing over here. Uh, does it resonate or not?
Yeah, it certainly resonates with me. As you said, as I shared briefly in the earlier part of the conversation, we started off as a bookstore, and then you pivoted in bringing authors of those books for live events. Then you started, bringing it into events. Then you started working with organizations privately, where you bring in speakers for, events, leadership offsites, and then you started going into executive coaching, and that became a next pivot. We have clients throughout the region. So to me, again, the world is changing so fast in the last, you know, 1 to 3 years, and I'm also sensing that there's something new. I may not be able to pinpoint it today, but I definitely, when people said, "Wow, you got 30 years experience," and I said, "Well, how do you think? What's your mindset?" I said, "My mindset is I'm a startup with 30 years experience." They're like, "You're a startup with 30 years experience?" I said, "Yeah, because as long as I have the mindset I'm a startup, then I'm not going to be complacent. I'm going to be open to learning, open to change, open to doing things differently. Not because I've been in 30 years of business that this is how it's to be done. I think the speed of change has never been faster than any ever time in your or my life. And to me, once we are open to change, we are willing to learn, then we can have those breakthroughs, and we could have that next pivot, and we can have that next journey. That I also resonate with what you shared. I may not know what it is specifically, but I'm absolutely open to change. I'm open to learning, and I'm open to that next wave.
Yeah. If every individual, or if there is a way to be the facilitator of this change for others, and to do it at a quantum level is what would be truly inspiring. We have two comments over here and a question. A world full of digital noise, how do you sustain authentic relationships that don't fade after the first shake hand? So that's something that you didn't mention, but yes, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I've written a book called Breaking Bread, and which is building meaningful relationships for long-lasting success. And in that book, um, the example I gave even earlier in this conversation today was, after you attend an event and you've had a handshake with someone, uh, what do you do afterwards determines whether that handshake is just another number. What message are you sending that by email or by LinkedIn? Quite often, most people just send a LinkedIn message, met you last night event, and just send a LinkedIn request, or don't even put a message. But the moment you can write a message, something from that conversation, that is authentic, that is real, that connects with people, that means that person feels he heard what I said, he remembers what I shared, and he valued my time, as opposed to, oh, that guy met me and he just wanted to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's it. That's all that goes through mind, whether I say it consciously, but subconsciously, when someone has a message, they feel heard, they feel valued, they feel appreciated. And if it's just a short message to connect, it's just another number on their connection sheet to grow their followers. So to
Yeah.
me, in summary, is make time to share an emotional message, which is authentic. That will make a big difference.
And I can say I'm guilty of it sometimes, myself doing it, where I reach out and say that we have met and Now we can send that email out only if we have been completely present with that person. Otherwise, we would not be able to send out that email also. Yeah, get that. Uh, Question from Javed, your dear friend. Hey Gautam, in the market there are a ton of coaching and events options for leadership discussions. How do you decide which one is right for them?
Yeah, great question, Javed. Thank you for that. I mean, at the end of the day, in a market, you have a lot of options for all your needs. And I think it boils down to trust, rapport, where you have connections. So, you know, when people introduce you through a successful experience, that is definitely one of the most authentic, trusted manners. In fact, when someone makes an introduction to someone they know, that to me is priceless because it saves a lot of time of the customer exploring too many options because they themselves are very busy. The most valued time thing is people's time. So introductions would be one, and two is references. Obviously, one would have references that one is comfortable to give your clients, and once you give them references, they're able to do a background check and understand, what impact has this organization or this coach had on your leaders. And if you hear that from a external company, that also gives you comfort, reassurance, and confidence. So to me, referrals and testimonials are two of the primary manners that would be how to select.
Yeah, and also people you like, right?
Yeah, people you like, trust, and where you have a rapport. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We have Soumya who shared a thought over here. She really loved your insight about, she's called it givers gain instead of givers gain, but giving and adding value. It's a beautiful reminder uh, that most meaningful connections are built from a place of generosity and authenticity.
Absolutely.
Gautam, before we wind up, I have one last question.
Yes.
uh, we are addressing the future leaders of tomorrow with this podcast. The whole idea is there are so many managers out there who continue to behave like managers and don't step up to the level of leaders that their team wants them to be, right? They still are focused on tasks and to-do lists, and they don't really do people development, etc. So the whole idea of bringing this podcast together, bring speakers and thought leaders like you together, is to share insights so that they start leveling up to be the leaders of tomorrow. If you were to give them one message today, uh, what would that one thing be for them uh, to level up?
It would be their mindset to me that every manager needs to have the mindset of a leader because that is absolutely fundamental. We are all leaders of whatever role we are playing as a manager, is having a leadership mindset, and that is something that would really be of tremendous value to yourself as an individual and the organization when you step up with a leadership mindset, as opposed to just a manager's mindset waiting to be led by your leaders. So that would be the sort of thought that come to my mind.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gautam. I know you are living with the mindset of a 30-year-old startup, 20-year-old startup, 20-year-old
Absolutely.
startup, right? 20-year-old startup. And I wish you all the best in the next innings of your journey with right selections and everything that you're doing. Uh, I thank you for the impact that you create in this market and in the lives of people. It's been a
Thank
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Samir. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here featured on your podcast, and wishing you great success with leading with more clarity. And thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.